We have a reasonably short agenda today, but some important topics to consider, so we'll get right to it. Having no citizens wishing to speak to the board, we'll move to the approval of the minutes, which was our May 4th, 2017 committee. You have a motion and a second. DT motion, Chuck second. Any question or discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you very much. First item, and this will not require action, but this has become I think a well thought out and customary activity for the network to do, and that is to understand what the Medical Capital Committee concerns are and requests are. And again, it's not an action item for us, but we asked several years ago that there begin to be a process for vetting and hearing thoughts about what capital items might be recommended by that group. It'll have to go through finance and ultimately administration, and whether or not it gets put in the budget will be a decision that's not ours, but we do want to hear it, and we appreciate very much the group being here today. So Kathleen, are you going to kick us off on this?
And I have a friend, Gina Edwards, is going to join.
Gina, welcome. Come on down. Good to see you.
Kathleen, I know that you're going to introduce the two doctors that are here as well, but let me make a comment both on Drs. Manoff and Dr. Sneederjohn. Both of these gentlemen are in our audience. Dr. Manoff, if you'll wave, and Dr. Sneederjohn, if you'll wave, so we can get a face to a name. These doctors are trying very hard to work with the administration in an innovative approach to figure out how best we take care of our patients. And I'm proud of both of them. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with Dr. Sneederjohn. He came by my office, which I was greatly appreciative of, to try to figure out what we do on behalf of our patients. And I know that sometimes in other organizations these things can be easier. If you just figure out how to tell your board you're going to make money off of it, sometimes it works a little bit easier. It's really all about the patient and what we're trying to do. And I just want to tell both of them that I appreciate them being here and going through this process.
Yeah, we do, and I'll echo that, because Chuck and I and Ralph were all on the board whenever this process many years ago was really nothing more than throw it up against the wall. And we really had no idea what vetting had been done or what considerations might be due. And now we have a process, Robert, and we appreciate that at the board level from you and Bill in instituting that process, because now we actually have a mechanism, I think, that gives it its due and gives us an opportunity to vet it properly. So doctors, thank you for your efforts in this. We appreciate it very, very much. Okay, Kathleen, you and Gina, take it away.
Oops, I think I'm going the wrong way. I'm looking for the presentation.
Well, you did such a good job last committee of that presentation. You can do that one again, and that'd be fine.
Well, I could do it for you, but I can't
was
get
a
my
good
password
presentation.
into the system, so I'm going to let you
It
go
is.
ahead.
Yeah, we're not going to ask.
Melinda was going to show me. I got it. We're here today to present three ideas that have been presented at the Medical Capital Committee. And as you mentioned, Dr. Sneederjohn is in the audience, and he is the interventional radiology physician who is here to answer any of the clinical questions, because I am definitely not the person you want to ask. Gina is here to address any of the financial questions that you might have on the pro forma that her group has put together. So Y90 radioembolization is a new treatment option for inoperable colon and liver cancer carcinomas. It's a multi-staging procedure that's performed in the interventional radiology department, and its benefit to our patients is to give increased treatment options when their traditional therapy fails, and to help downstage the patient so that they can have operative procedures. So what are we doing today? Can't drive and talk, apparently. Our current volume for the last 12 months has been about 24 patients that went out to THR, and that's what our annual projection will be on an annual basis that we have identified through the help of the oncology department. And the consideration for doing it on site is that the National Comprehensive Cancer Network guidelines support it as an effective chemotherapy and service that would augment our current oncology program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gina to see if she can talk a little bit about the financials that they have documented.
Just to speak very, very, I guess, high level about what our analysis contained, we did look at about 25 patients per year that we would be addressing and treating. We looked at the payer mix that would be included in that grouping based upon our population that we have referred out, to come up with our assessment of what the net revenue would be for that. Then we did an analysis and an estimate around what the costs, the direct costs would be for performing the treatment. And that's how we arrived at a net revenue in year one of about $600,000, slightly over $600,000. Operating expense right at the same, to where the net contribution for the treatment of these patients using this methodology would be about anywhere from 48 to 55,000 per year, depending on our net revenue compilation.
And with that, it's a lot of information. We're going to open it up to see if you have any questions.
Question, what is the billable charge for that procedure?
Well, there's several components and pieces to that, so it would be a little difficult just to haul out what the billable charges would be, because the charge would be for the room charge, there's a supply charge, there's a procedure, there's multiple charges that would be billable charges. The gross there would be the 1,000,004 divided by the 25 number of patients. That's your billable charges per patient. So billable charges would be the gross revenue, the 1.5 million, if that's what you're referring to. Let me say that's our gross charges. That's charges in. Deductions, depending on your payer mix, would get your deductions from revenue to get you to your net of $630,000 in the first year. It depends on if it's Medicare, Medicaid, commercial insurance, and then some self-pay in there.
When you send them to THR, then that means you send JPS.
We referred the patient to an institution that would provide that service. We do not provide that service, so it cost us nothing. We did not incur a cost for referring those patients to a facility that provided that service.
We don't pay for that.
Correct.
I think the reimbursement for it is about 31,000.
For the radio, for Medicare rate.
For me to pull out just a particular Medicare rate, I would have to go back and investigate that. The reimbursement is assumed to be about 150 a Medicare rate is what we would be reimbursed because of the
Do you know what type of referral out to THR? Because there's 3 categories of liver cancer, A, B, and C.
That can be answered by Dr. Sneederjohn.
Yes.
Most of them have been referred out either colorectal or in our.
Why don't you, Dr. Sneederjohn, why don't you come on up? In fact, Dr. Manoff and Dr. Sneederjohn, if either one of you two want to come up,
Probably save time if you both come up.
yeah, why don't y'all both come up? We don't even make you bring your own chair, so.
So most of them have been HCC, since we have a large cirrhotic population here, right? But we've also done some colorectal. There's been also a couple referrals for carcinoid cancers, right? So metastatic carcinoid to the liver.
Because what I'm trying to get is wrapped around how many cases that apply to that 24, 25 patient that we sent out.
So
All of them would be that.
what was the question?
The question, I'm not quite sure where, but all the patients that qualify, as Dr. Sneederjohn has referred to, are the 25 that we're referring to that we would do each year.
And I think his
There is a-
question was, were they, when you look at the literature on it, it was talking about the treatment for, on liver cancer, they had A, B, and C. And so, it's more effective with A, B, and less effective on C for liver cancer patients. And that's what he was asking.
You're talking about
Did you know what-
hepatitis A, B, and C? I guess I'm confused.
Okay.
I don't know what they mean by A, B, and C.
Okay.
Dr. Sneederjohn, is this something that's recommended by NCCN guidelines as a best practice?
So it is, right? It's level 2A, which is on the same recommendations as chemotherapy.
Thank you.
Is
Other
there,
questions?
is there anything that you all want to add to that, what was said, to give either clarity to the board members or anything that you feel might be helpful in this process? You're on a daily basis, you're frontline. So it would probably help us or help the board members to know what you witness, what you see, what the situation is.
as I'm sure some of the people in this room are aware, right, unfortunately, our patients nationally show up with advanced cancer, almost 2 times the rate of any other patient population. So that means that we have a higher risk for those patients to show up with metastatic liver cancer. So in our patient population, this is one more potential treatment for those patients that they wouldn't otherwise have. So certainly, all of these cases are usually discussed at tumor board. And in that case, if they're failing chemotherapy, this is another option for those patients. And, you know, in one patient's care, it was really a little eye-opening to me. And we had like I think she was 26. All she wanted to do was live through Christmas with her children, but this wasn't an option for that particular patient, even though she had metastatic colorectal cancer that had failed 2 separate regimens of chemotherapy, but that wasn't an option for this treatment. So for me, that was a little personal, since that all she wanted to do was live through Christmas. So that one was a little tough to take.
And help me as a layman understand, is this treatment post-chemotherapy, in lieu of chemotherapy? Explain that process.
In most circumstances, when it comes to colorectal cancer, they've usually failed a regimen of 2 of chemotherapy, meaning they're still having liver-dominant disease that's progressing despite chemotherapy. And this is an opportunity to help extend their life another 6 months to a year, right? Which that lady's case meant the world to her.
Sure.
As far as HCC, right, that's something that we have very few treatment options for HCC. So local regional therapy, and in this case, this is one of those options, is the only treatment. And actually, with this treatment, this is the only chance you're going to have to downstage your cancer. And by downstage, meaning giving you a chance to go to surgery for potential curative cure of your cancer, right? Which that would not be an option currently for us.
So it can be both for colon cancer and
HCC,
ACC. And we have more colon or more ACC?
probably a mix of both, but we actually see quite a bit of HCC.
I can speak to that as the pathologist in the room. We actually do have a very high rate of hepatocellular carcinoma relative to our high rates of hepatitis. So a pretty high rate of hepatitis A and B in our population, and therefore we obviously see more primary liver cancers. Although, I want to echo what Dr. John already said, we see a large percentage of our patient demographic present to us in very late stages of disease. Something I really had to get used to, not being familiar with this and coming from a different community. A lot of these patients, we just had one today presented with liver metastasis from colorectal cancer. So there's a large patient population. We're just talking about 25 patients who would actually qualify for this. And I want to reiterate what we kind of said before, is that this is considered a best practice by the National Comprehensive Cancer Network. That's what the NCCN guidelines are. That's really sort of our playbook for what is best practices based on national guidelines, and this treatment is in there on a par level with chemotherapy.
Is there, I'm curious because my dad passed away of liver cancer, pancreatic liver and all that stuff, so.
Sure.
Is there a difference between the, what do you call the national cancer?
And NCCN, yes.
And the, between that and the BCLC, the guideline?
I'm not familiar with BCOC. Do you gentlemen?
The Barcelona Clinic liver cancer?
I think he's referring to like the Barcelona
Right.
liver, and normally
Oh.
those are based on, I think most of those guidelines are based on cirrhotic patients and liver dominant and primarily liver-based diseases, so cirrhosis, hep C, those kind of things, hepatitis B. So those what Dr. Miles is referring to are the national consensus guidelines. So those where a panel of experts get together from various fields and decide based on most of the literature what's in the best interest of your patient population. That's how those guidelines are based.
Right.
So a panel of experts decides, right, we think this is best treatment modality for whatever cancer you might have.
Right. Just, I was trying to establish, are we taking this beyond for clinical research also as well, or?
So, I guess that's a possibility, although there's already a lot of research in play, especially as it concerns hepatitis C and a different drug called sorafenib, and whether or not combining those 2 therapies actually has a synergistic or an effect that works together to make your cancer treatment better. There are preliminary studies that say that that might be true. Unfortunately, because we don't have this stuff online, that wasn't an option for us to participate in things like this.
Because I'm a little bit, I'm not a physician, so bear with me.
Okay.
But from what I've known and read, according to the BCLC, A and B is more effective with
Oh, I see
chemo.
where he's going with the A, B, and C now.
Right, and then the C categories is more effective with the radio embolization.
Correct, so
But-
as you're
but
more
when it's
advanced
metastasized, then
stage,
it's more-
right? So for instance, if you're more advanced stage and you had, when it comes to hepatitis C patients or HCC, you might have ingrowth of tumor even into your portal vein, right? So that means you're more advanced stage, and in that case, this would be your only option.
Okay,
That's a good question.
And then I think later on, we'd love to understand more a little bit when we go to quality or something, is the effectiveness of disease type of category is prolonged, the survival rate went from 13 months to 17, to 16 or 17 months.
On average, about 16 or 17.
Right.
yeah.
So I think, I don't know where we are from. I guess it's more down to patient preference and end of life. And also, where are we with palliative care type thing?
So that's why the vast majority of these cases go through our tumor board, and if, as a consensus group, we feel like that this patient may need to have a palliative care conversation, then that's usually what happens. They're referred to our palliative care doctors.
Thank you.
Ralph?
Yeah. I heard you say this, and Dr. Miles, that you're seeing patients who are coming at the more advanced stage. And Dr. Miles, you said you found that different for this region.
This patient population, right?
Yes, I said for this patient demographic.
Any studies been done to try to figure out why we're or is it just preventive care is not taking place?
Having been here for 16 months, I can only share with you my 16-month experience. It's probably a combination of multiple factors. It seems to me, and I'm, again, very new to this group, but it does seem to me that our patients don't access care until late in the course of their disease.
That's right.
So access is one consideration, I'm sure, and why patients don't access care. Obviously, we could have an hour conversation around that, why they don't access care. They don't necessarily access screening measures. Again, not accessing care, and Dr. Manoff may have a view on this as well as to why people don't access care until late in the course of their disease, but that's typically what we see.
But you're talking about colon cancers, correct?
All cancers
All
present
cancers.
in advanced stages at JPS. Yeah, the demographics that we see from the cancer registry show that a very high percentage of our patients are in advanced stages compared to national averages.
Have we looked to see at how long it's taken for a patient to be able to be scheduled for a colonoscopy? How long does it take for a patient to get in to see a specialist with hepatitis? I mean, once we identify something, in our system, how long does it take for us to be able to process through the system? That would be one of the questions that I'd be wanting to see. How long does it take for a patient? You know, we have primary care doctors out there. How many of them are sitting waiting for a colonoscopy? What is the wait time for that? Then patients that are being seen, and then it's an advanced state. How long have we been following them? That would be something I would hope we'd be looking at.
I think, Scott, if you'll make a note so we can get to the appropriate people, I think there's probably two things that would be valuable to look at. Our accessibility in our process, and that is, do we have a breakdown in our process? And then I would like to look at like populations in like communities, that we can look at our demographics and compare, and look at the demographics of Houston, the demographics of our neighbors in Dallas, maybe in San Antonio and other places, to know what factors go into place of those who are not readily available themselves to a primary care type setting. Even though the clinic may be down the street, accessing that clinic, are there some issues that go and transcend social economics and what that is? Does it transcend education, and does it transcend that? So I think we could draw two things. One, is there significant challenges within our own system because of access denial or access prevention? And then do we have a larger social economic issue dealing with people who are outside of a realm by which medicine appears to be readily available?
And I would like for us to focus in on JPS connection patients who we've assigned a primary care doctor. How many of them have been seen and
I agree.
before it's identified? That
I agree.
would be-
I think that would be hugely helpful.
Yeah, also, you might want to get Commissioner Brooks' office involved with this.
Okay.
Because of his Healthy Lives Matter.
Mhm.
He draws a lot of persons from the community to those workshops.
Good.
And I think maybe that subject, that area could be one of his subjects.
I agree. I agree. I appreciate that.
May I ask for something also as well? Maybe some kind of data between different classification between chemo and radio and the survival rate between that.
The survival rate between chemo and
For different classifications, because, from, the Monte Carlo model, the classification A and B has a much higher survival rate than the radio. But if you have Class C non-med status, then the radio embolization has a higher survival rate, and it's more effective. So we can see educate, so that we can educate ourselves on what.
if that aspect, Dr. Sneeder-John, you and Kathleen can kind of help, because you just advanced beyond my pay grade. If you all can help with that element, Kathleen, do you think, is that question clear?
He was asking,
Okay.
and I took note of it, and I'll work with my clinical
So
expert.
one of the things that make cirrhotic patients more difficult is it's not just a function of their cancer, but it's also a function of their cirrhosis, right? So what I'm saying is that because they have cirrhosis, their liver function, their cirrhosis may be worse than their cancer or vice versa, right? So you may find in those statistics, I think that it can really be a little bit confusing, and you can't really parse out some of those things because they may have advanced stage cirrhosis, and therefore you couldn't even treat them with some of the options we have just because their liver just wouldn't tolerate it. Or you could have a patient that has, horrible advanced stage HCC, but their livers, they still have a well-functioning liver. So those patients might survive longer just because they get a treatment, just because their liver is able to tolerate treatment, right? That's what makes it a little more complex. I think that's kind of what you were alluding to.
So these are all questions of quality, not planning. And I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to go into whatever level of detail necessary on their agenda, but in the interest of our agenda, we're going to move forward. Any questions relative to the planning scope for radio embolization? I have one only, Gina. When you showed the financials and you showed the contribution margin at the bottom, did you illustrate the capital? Is capital monetized against these costs somewhere?
There is no capital related, technically no capital related to this program.
Okay.
The only expense is direct costs,
Okay.
including the most expensive piece of this would be, of course, the radioactive beads that are.
Perfect.
implanted.
So at the complete lay level, and in deference to my friend Steve as chair of planning, and the way I would have looked at these things always as we've seen them, is that when we can take a broad picture of the overall cost of the network, the overall revenues that we can expect to receive from the network, one of the things we've always looked at, is this a positive, is this a cash positive or a cash negative situation? It looks, as you've presented here, it appeared to be a cash positive introduction.
Correct.
So, all right, any other questions on radio embolization financials or radio embolization introduction? Okay, if not, then you guys can move on to FibroScan, is that right?
The next item is FibroScan 520, and that is a capital purchase, and that is the ability to perform non-invasive ultrasound scans of the liver within the clinic setting. And the benefit of that is that it eliminates the need for potential invasive liver biopsies and, of course, the cost of the pathologist, and also gives the physician in the clinic an easy ability to monitor the progression of the disease in that setting and do immediate course correction if necessary. On the current status side, we have approximately 6,000 patients that receive a lab test with a charge of about $263. And according to the clinicians, about 15% of those patients would be clinically appropriate for this procedure within the clinic. Thus, there would be a little bit of cost savings on the lab side. And with that, I'm going to ask Gina to just go over the financials, and then we can open it up for Dr. Manoff for any of the clinical questions that you may have.
Again, we looked at this particular division of work in this service line and looked at the gross charges that would be implemented. We used a payer mix that was applicable to individuals who fell within this project or this service line to come up with a net revenue. We looked at the expenses related to providing the service and came to a net margin in the first years that potentially would be negative and went positive in year 3. The biggest contribution to this program is the cost avoidance that comes from and the quality of service that goes to our patients when they do not have to have a liver biopsy conducted in order to have this assessment made. The equipment that we have does, and Dr. Manoff can probably explain it better than I, but it basically provides the service without having to do a liver biopsy. So there's a cost avoidance to this project. And so that's what creates a positive contribution or positive savings to this program for JPS.
And presumably a lot less trauma and stress and everything else that goes along with that, right?
And it's provided at the setting that they're in the clinic, so they wouldn't have to go to a secondary setting for another appointment.
I would just want to make sure, FibroScan 520, is that the machine or is that some
It's an
medical terminology?
ultrasound basically, and measures the elasticity of the liver, which correlates with the fibrosis and has a complete correlation with the fibrosis, with the biopsy in advanced stages like 3 and 4.
EchoSense?
Fibrosis, yes.
It's 502.
Yeah.
It's FibroScan 502.
There's many manufacturers out there, so if we did go ahead with this purchase, we would do an RFP appropriately and so forth.
Oh, no, what I meant is the number is FibroScan 502 instead of 520.
So
Well, it
DT, you're at a
says-
level that goes way beyond all of us. You're saying that, this is a typo? Is that what you're saying? Okay, so it's 502 and not 520? All right, cool, noted.
So it's less painful to the patient. It gives you the opportunity to see the whole liver fibrosis rather than 1/500, which the biopsy does. The cost of the procedure is much lower than, and gives opportunity basically to follow the fibrosis in hepatitis B and C with the treatment, and improvement versus no improvement, usually improvement with the current treatment options. Gives opportunity in patients with fatty liver disease, this is the new hepatitis C, basically to see if they have fibrosis already. And basically, we as a clinicians, for example, we see this fatty liver disease, but the platelets are going on the lower side, spleen is still small, so we cannot explain, but fibrosis may be already there, which can explain that the patient has developing cirrhosis. And in 10 minutes, you have the answer. If it's above 12.5 kilopascals, it gives you in front of you after 10 measurements in 10 minutes. So it's a great tool, and a lot of people think that very soon it will replace completely the biopsy, this tool, non-invasive tool.
Other questions?
Now, that will be at campus here, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, angel catheters?
The next item is the use of angel catheters, and that would be used in place of some of the IVC or inferior vena cava filters that we currently use by implanting within the interventional radiology department. There's been an FDA alert over the last few months about the use of IVC filters and the risk associated with them with patients. The benefit of the angel catheters is that it could be placed at bedside, and then you prevent the use of additional radiology in the interventional radiology department. However, you would still have them removed in IR, but you would remove at least one of the invasive procedures. And it does reduce the potential risk of patients having to take prophylaxis and long-term complications from those. So currently, this was a review that was hard to actually do a match on. We currently are doing about 32 procedures year to date, and last year in fiscal 16, we did 112 procedures. However, in talking with Dr. Gandhi and Dr. Ziegler, they felt that we would probably at some point reach about 200 patients annually. That would include continuing to put IVC filters in appropriate patients, but we would still use additional angel catheters if approved for that population that may be trauma-related and so forth. The costs are fairly comparable, and when Gina did her costs, what we did not include was the cost of doing the procedure with the IVC filter of the supplies in addition to the filter. So Gina's numbers, and I apologize to this, Gina, I didn't have a chance to tell you that the numbers actually vary on the pro forma a little differently than what she had projected because she didn't have that additional $1,100 cost for the IVC filter.
So that would be a net positive to the pro forma.
If you run the numbers different, the IVC filter cost is $2,000 and the angel catheter is $2,250. So the numbers will be a lot tighter, and I can't tell you exactly which you would have to run the numbers appropriately.
Fair enough.
I don't want to even.
So when you have a program or procedure like that that's accompanied by FDA alerts, the procedural response to that is to continue doing it more carefully, stop doing it, find something else? What's the
I'm going to defer
protocol?
that to Dr. Sneeder-John.
Well, so the guidelines for placement of IVC filters have become more stringent. So, you know, in concordance with that, then we will only place them only if the patient meets certain criteria for placement. So that's been, you know, we've reduced that's why the numbers have fallen, right?
Mm-hmm.
The number of placements, because we don't place as many, number one. Number two, you know, JPS was kind enough to let us, as interventional radiologists, have a clinic. So now we follow up all those patients that have IVC filters placed. And so we determine whether or not that filter's, if we place a temporary type filter, which just has a hook on top, right? We determine whether or not that filter is still needed, and if it's not, then it's removed. If it's still needed, then of course it stays. On top of that, you know, we were the only facility in the Metroplex which was able to take them out with a laser type sheath to have those removed if they had been left in a little bit longer than they were supposed to. So we were able to explant. We're able to explant most of it up to even 2005, which other facilities cannot do. Unfortunately, UT Southwestern found out about what we were doing, and now they want to do what we were doing. So,
Say that again.
UT Southwest. So, from our perspective, we were able to remove a lot. But having said that, again, we just follow the guidelines as you're asking. We place less of them than we used to.
Okay. Other questions for angel catheters? Anyone? Okay, that's great. Kathleen?
That is it, unless you have any additional questions.
Any other questions, summary for doctors or Kathleen or Gina?
I want to just thank the physicians because they are the clinical experts and they needed to be here to help make that case and answer all your questions.
We appreciate it.
Real excited to be here.
They're jumping up and down in the chair.
Well, we, you know,
It's a clinical question from a
Right,
non-clinical
well, I didn't
person.
see all this stuff coming from over this side.
at least we have a process now, and that's really the point. The point was, you know, before, there was no accompanying data to a request at all. Now we've got financials, we've got experts that can tell us the, you know, the criteria and protocols, and so it's a whole different mindset. So leaving here today without a, quote, answer from us should not be shouldn't be construed as negative. The fact is, the process was designed just to make sure that the data is available so that we can look at it. So that ultimately it becomes a decision that's a bit more enlightened than the ones we used to make. So we do appreciate it very much, all of you, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All righty. Mr. Early, what am I missing?
It is now Angie Morgan's time
Angie.
for presentation. Angie Morgan's going to
Come
give
on
us an
down.
update on design and construction updates.
Angie, are you going to be there in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Good.
Wouldn't miss
She has a special construction hat ready to go.
Yes, for all of y'all.
Very good.
Thank y'all for allowing me to present our construction update on what's going on with us. The first one is our ED expansion into the shell space over at the pavilion. We're still in design on that. You know, we want to make sure that whatever we design is going to help improve the flow over there and get our patients taken care of. So that's continuing on in design. The radiology equipment installs, if you'll remember, that's several pieces of general x-ray equipment and then a third MRI. Two of the general x-rays are going in right now. We're working on those. One of them is still in the permit process. The city of Fort Worth is a little bit slower than they have been in the past, just I think a lot of construction going on. So permitting's a little slow for us, but we'll get it through there. The MRI design is continuing on, and we have not started anything out at the TCC, the jail, but we will. So those are moving on. The next one, you know, I'm really excited about, not that all of our projects aren't fun and exciting, but that Northeast Tarrant Medical Home. Groundbreaking tomorrow. I hope everybody can come. Key Construction was issued their notice to proceed the same day that the commissioners approved, June 27th. So they get 21 days to mobilize, so they're in the process of mobilizing. And you'll see things on site on or about July 18th. The main hospital, old OR trauma, AP and the nurse team up there, the contractor's mobilizing. That is also in the city of Fort Worth, still in the permit process, but we're hoping to get that released pretty quickly. The last one is our TSP Phase 3 patient rooms, and if you'll remember, that's doors, anti-ligature equipment. So the doors are going to be done one room at a time because we can't close any more rooms than that, but we are working on that, and it's in process. Any questions?
Do you see any, or obviously not Northeast Medical Home, but these other projects were budget 17 items, will they be finished in this fiscal year or not?
They will not, but the money is
Okay.
committed.
Okay.
And so we'll be issuing POs and working on them.
Okay, great. Any questions for Angie?
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes our agenda. Angie, thank you very much. 9 o'clock in the morning, Northeast Medical Home. What's the address, Scott?
3200 West Euless Drive.
3200 West Euless Drive. We would be appreciative and honored for as many board members as possible to be at that. We encourage it. A lot of time and energy and work has gone into bringing that day to fruition, so we're excited about it. Robert, thank you for your staff and all the work you've done to prepare
bet,
for
all
it.
y'all.
So all of us in the Northeast are beholden for sure to see
Any
a big
particular dress
improvement.
code?
The dress code?
There is none.
That would
Well,
be-
a dress, prefer, to
Dress.
attire, yes. But you are going to be in an open field, and it has sprinkled on and off in the last couple of days. So I would encourage you not to wear your best of shoes. But
Believe it or not, I do have cowboy boots.
Okay, well, that might be the time.
well, it might be the time to break them out.
Might be the time. Unless it's like lizard skin or something.
make that, but
Well, I'd like to have that picture too. Do you have a hat?
I do.
Oh, well, you need to get the we're all.
Yeah, if you want to go the full deal, we're all for it. Yeah, and a belt
With
buckle.
fringe.
Yeah, come on, bring it on.
All right, that concludes our planning agenda. Thank you all very much. It is 8:04. No close.
No close.
No close.
There is no close.
8 minutes after 4, we are adjourned.
You guys, could you get it?